Make sure you don't miss a thing. Go to starzology.com/newsletter and sign up. Welcome to the Starzology Astrology Podcast. I am your host, Alison Price, and I'm here with my good friend and co-host, Arwynne O'Neill.
Hello, Alison. It's great to be here.
So nice to have you once more. So in this episode, we're going to be looking at a upcoming conjunction. Well, depends when you're listening. We've got a conjunction coming up between Saturn conjoining Neptune.
Yes, two big heavy hitters.
Two big heavy hitter planets. And this only happens every...
36 years, approximately.
Every 36 years.
Yeah.
So we've got an interesting situation because what's happening technically for the Virgos amongst us, it's coming and it's going to be within orb of 1 degree of the actual exact from June the 9th, 2025 till August 22nd. And it will be the tightest orb on July the 16th. So it's still going to be 0 degrees, 12 minutes applying. So it doesn't make the exact this year. It's close enough. So it's within orb. So we're going to, that's why we're talking about it.
Within a degree.
It's it's less than 1 degree. So that's within orb. So that's going to be for June, July, August. So for 2 months, it's going to be within orb, lingering, loitering with intent.
Yeah.
And then it will separate again. And then finally, we will have the one only exact hit next year, 2026, on the 20th of February. And that will be at 0 Aries. Whereas this original one that we're talking about now in June and August, July will be at 2 degrees Aries.
Yeah.
So it's both happening in Aries. As Saturn then moves into Aries, catches up with Neptune, and ba-boom,
yeah,
monster, big planet conjunction.
Yeah. This is a big transit. This is a big cycle. I've written about the Saturn-Neptune cycle like 20 years ago now. It was actually one of the first articles that I wrote that I actually presented at a conference.
Yes.
And I was shocked to realize when I got to the conference. That
an astrology conference.
My first astrology conference.
Okay.
My actual only? I think it was my own. No. It was my first astrology conference. And I was shocked to realize that they had double booked all these other speakers except mine, which just happened to be like right in the middle of the conference, and there was nothing competing with my presentation.
Wow! So everybody flocked.
Everyone was at the and I was a little not speechless for sure because I was just basically and I know this is now like kind of bad form, but I was reading basically my article, but I had a massive slideshow of tons of images that I had collected and put together for this presentation, because at the very last minute, someone said, if you need any AV equipment, let me know. And I was like, oh my God, there's got to be a visual component. And so I scrambled for the last week before this conference to put together just this massive slideshow of images, which actually turned out to be amazing. It was almost like a little documentary.
So sorry. So to be clear, this wasn't 36 years ago when the last conjunction was.
It was exactly. It was. This was when the opposition happened.
Oh, right.
So this was basically 18 years ago. The conference was in 2005, and the conjunction, the opposition was happening over the course of 2005 to 2007.
Interesting.
Basically, because it went, conjunction. Opposition. Retrograded.
Triple hit, yeah.
But the last conjunction happened in 1989.
Right.
So there's your 36 years ago, and that was in Capricorn.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I remember it well.
Yes, exactly. The Saturn
that big conjunction.
Massive. And there was, oh my gosh, that was what a historically significant year. We had the riots in Tiananmen Square. We had the South African apartheid,
I do.
protests.
Yep.
We had communism falling and the wall coming apart, the Berlin Wall.
Right.
All those people like tearing the wall like literally down in handfuls of graffiti encrusted plaster and rocks, and also the it was a huge year, massive, and
memorable,
incredible. Apparently, yes. But yeah, apparently very memorable. Anyway, I did this massive bunch of research on it. So if you want to watch the video that I did,
it's a video, right?
Yeah, there's video and an article. We can link to it at the bottom.
Yeah.
But it's 20 years ago. But it's about the opposition. I did a ton of research into the entire cycle, though, and there were a bunch of themes that kind of came up that I found really. I mean, I did a deep dive into sort of the history of when these planets come into either opposition or conjunction.
Well, let's have a shallow dive then. Yeah,
shallow dive, exactly. So one of the patterns that I noticed was what I consider and okay. So let's just talk about. Sorry, let's go back and talk about Saturn and Neptune. What do they mean? I consider these symbolically opposites. Saturn is all about what's concrete, established, institutional, traditional, the government, control, the dad who tells you to just put on a sweater, and Neptune in total opposition represents spirituality, escapism, glamour, dreams, illusions and delusions, idealism at the best end of the spectrum, but also propaganda, paranoia, and it kind of drifting into insanity on the clouds of euphoria on the other end of the spectrum. And when they come together historically, these two very, very different archetypes can create some of the most memorable kind of events or psychic, what's the word? Like just the psychic turmoil.
Okay.
And it's kind of like Saturn Pluto, but less violent. And, there's a more creative aspect because you've got that Neptune, but it's like when creativity and structure come together. And the conjunctions tend to create more positive, and the oppositions tend to create, of course, more friction. Mm-hmm. So when the conjunctions happen, I have noticed. Also, there's a big notice of a lot of different people have written about the rise and fall of communism, and how there's all these different dates. The Russian Revolution started in 1917 when Saturn and Neptune were conjunct. The next period was the Great Purge in the 30s, and that's when the next opposition was, Stalin. So just a few political events that have happened under the Saturn-Neptune conjunctions, which are incredibly significant. So in 1917, the two planets were conjunct in Leo, and this was the time of the Bolshevik Revolution that sort of tossed the Russian Empire from being a monarchy into being what we know as the Soviet Union, and that continued for until 1989. In 1952, the two were conjunct in Libra, and that's when Queen Elizabeth ascended the throne. And there was a coup in Egypt. The polio vaccine was invented. So these major things that are bringing kind of like the polio vaccine is a really interesting one because it brought something that was so nebulous. It was waterborne. It was this illness that struck children. It was just this horrific thing that no one thought was illnesses and weird things that are hard to diagnose and hard to sort of get a grasp on as far as clinical studies and diseases. That's a very Neptunian thing, but finding structure and finding a cure for that, or finding a amelioration for that, and vaccinating massive amounts of people. And the polio vaccine is one of the most successful vaccines that's been invented, and that happened around 1952. So the next conjunction was in 1989 in Capricorn, and that's the one that we physically remember. Yes. That was the fall of the Berlin Wall, the end of the Soviet Union, and the protests in Tiananmen Square, China, and all of the sort of a wonderful feeling that there was this new era dawning, and that was the beginning of sort of a turning over of a new leaf. And that was the last conjunction, and we are now experiencing another conjunction in Aries, which is fascinating.
And these are all cardinal. The last three were all in cardinal signs: Libra, Capricorn, Aries.
Yeah,
huge.
Yeah.
So as we go into 2020, as in 2025. As we come close to this orb, but not the exact, we are likely to see the bubbling unders of things. But actually, it will only be in February 2026 when whatever unfolds then. Yeah. But the bubbling under will occur this year.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's a lot of political upheaval that is.
Oh yes.
That tends to. I mean, right now, we don't even need to rehash all the political upheaval we know. But it's really interesting that there's this connection with the Soviet Union and with Russian history, going back even farther than the Bolshevik Revolution. I mean, I didn't even delve into the previous century, but there's something with Karl Marx that's blah blah blah, and there's this ongoing war between Russia and Ukraine, and all the upheaval with Putin, and whether or not the Trump-Putin relationship is going to result in peace, or who knows. So I guess we will definitely find out in the next 2 years.
That's right.
How that's going to go.
And where are we with China, or is that not relevant at this stage?
Oh my gosh. I mean, I think that's hugely relevant. Yeah.
Yes.
It's impossible to predict, I would say.
I know. It's,
You know,
but it's these sort of huge cycles where turning points occur.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Arwynne, would you say that these political themes are coming up because of the Saturn component?
Absolutely. I mean, I think anything really from Jupiter out is considered Saturn and Jupiter are not considered transpersonal planets, but they are not considered personal planets either.
Right.
So I think starting from Jupiter, which has a 12-year transit, and it takes about a year almost exactly to, in each sign. And then, of course, Saturn, which takes like 30 years and so on. It gets generational. It gets more transpersonal. It gets more political.
Yes.
As you go out from Jupiter. And so any of the transits but aspects that happen between any of those planets from Jupiter outwards, Jupiter, Uranus, Saturn, Pluto, Saturn, Neptune, these are huge transits that last for a year or more in their
unfoldment,
and even longer, like maybe a 3-year, depending on the orb you want to go with, but if you're considering like a 5-degree or even more, whatever, for transits, these are massive, long-lasting, things that will be effective and felt in throughout the world.
Well, this is it, because it's a transit. Everybody gets it.
Yeah. Exactly.
And it's only when we bring it back to the natal chart that we can personalize it.
Right. And we'll definitely get to that.
Yeah.
I just wanted to sort of go into the political stuff, because I've had this deep fascination with that stuff for many years, obviously, since I'm re-quoting an article I wrote 20 years ago. Yeah. But it's fascinating this comes back. And when I was writing it, we were on the cusp of this opposition, and we were seeing horrible flood, Hurricane Katrina, these awful floods that happened. Okay. We were seeing the tsunami, the tsunami in Thailand and Indonesia that wiped out like hundreds of thousands of people, and just these awful sort of water disasters, which I then found a massive connection when you looked at the oppositions. There was in 1917, or 1901, there was this massive flood in Galveston, Texas, and all of these sort of watery, land and water coming together, like Saturn and Neptune, right? I even called the article I wrote "Heavy Water," which was like,
and that's alluding to the heavy is the Saturn and the water is the Neptune.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. But there's also like this water and land coming together in cataclysmic ways.
Okay.
And floods and earthquakes.
Interesting.
But also interesting construction projects. The Hoover Dam, the Golden Gate Bridge. These were both constructed during times that Saturn and Neptune were in opposition. So it was, I believe,
controlling water.
1937, 36, 37, around that time, controlling water, exactly, and finding ways to sort of, through man's ingenuity and engineering feats of accomplishment. And
aren't they building a new Panama Canal, not in Panama, somewhere else, right?
Right. Yeah, I mean, this massive dam in China and all, like, we're constantly doing all of these mega projects, as the TV show says.
Yes, what's called the triple something dam. That's humongous, isn't it?
Three Gorges. Yeah.
Three Gorges Dam. That's it. Yeah, it's like, wow. What are we doing? Yeah,
totally. Yeah, and it's all fun and games until something collapses. But,
Okay.
Yeah. So really interesting stuff, and we can now sort of maybe narrow the focus and say what it means when this conjunction is going through your chart.
Yes.
And I'm gonna just do a little segue here and quote the great and powerful Liz Green.
Yes.
Who wrote the actual book on Neptune and also the book on Saturn.
And the book is called?
The book is called Neptune.
Okay.
And the Quest for Redemption. So this is Liz Green's massive 500-page tome on Neptune, and she also wrote a massive book on Saturn, not quite as massive.
Yes.
But yeah. So she talks about the Saturn-Neptune aspects in your chart.
Okay.
I'm just going to quote a little bit just to give a flavor.
Sounds good.
Because she has such great sort of archetypal, mythological language that sort of resonates with me.
Fantastic. Okay.
So she says, in the pairing of Saturn and Neptune lies one of life's most fundamental conflicts. From the form and formlessness collide to create either the gift of incarnating vision or the refusal to be psychologically born. Saturn and Neptune may be deeply identified with political ideals of a utopian kind, which we've talked about.
Yeah.
And the Saturn-Neptune cycle is associated with the rise and fall of communism. Political parties, by their nature, reflect Saturn-Neptune as they seek to translate social vision into concrete form, which is a great way of saying that. Yeah, and she says that anyone who was born between 1951 and 1953 will have that Saturn conjunct Neptune in Libra. So that's that's that kind of flower child. That sort of very idealistic, want to change the world sort of vision, combined with Pluto in Leo. So the means and the opportunity. You know?
Right.
Yeah, and she says at times this may drive the individual into overt or covert efforts to escape, and at other times demanding that imagination be expressed in durable and meaningful structures. So this is that bringing water and earth and concrete and illusion, dreams and work into conjunction. And she says of the sort of the dark side of it, that the person who finds this sort of polarity in their chart, maybe with the opposition or a square or something like that, she says they find it hard to invoke this in the outside world. That natal Saturn despises the clawing fingers of Neptune, which is interesting, with its whine of, I can't help it, it's everybody else's fault, while natal Neptune recoils from the icy control of Saturn with its snarl of stop whining and get on with it. So if you can't if you don't have the conjunction, but you have another, difficult aspect with these planets, then it can be very, very difficult. It's one of the hardest aspects ever, because there is just this absolute dichotomy of meaning and motivation in your chart that is constantly in battle. But with the conjunction, there is a lot of positive that can come out of bringing form to formlessness and bringing concrete reality to these lofty dreams and ideals.
Right.
So let's look at what happens when Saturn and Neptune are conjunct and by transit go through your chart.
Okay, so we said that this is happening at 2 and 0 degrees Aries.
Yeah.
So you need to find that place in your chart and decide which house. We're going to say 2 degrees because that's where the first one goes. And let me just double check my notes here. Yeah, 2 degrees Aries is going to be the 2025 close flyby. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
But the actual will be at 0 Aries. But either way, it's both in Aries at the very early degrees
very,
of
very
Aries.
close in orb to each other. So either way. So if you have anything between 2 and 4 degrees Aries or Libra, because then it will be in opposition, or the squares with the
Cancer and Capricorn.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah, so we're looking for you. You need to look in your natal chart and find the house where 2 degrees Aries is for the next chunk about what we're going to be chatting about now, right?
Yeah.
Of where this actual conjunction is going to occur for you this year and into next year.
Yeah.
And of course, if you, as you say, if you've got any planets there, this conjunction will occur on those planets.
Yeah. Either way, it'll be going through a house.
Yes.
So this applies to everybody. But it's extra applying to you if you have anything at those degrees.
That's right.
Of the cardinal signs.
And any babies born this year between June and August will have this conjunction.
Yeah.
And of course, next year in February will have this conjunction built in, hard baked into their natal charts.
Powerful conjunction.
Huge. Yeah. Yes. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So it looks like these will be transiting through my 5th house, which is kind of awesome.
It is.
At first, I thought it was my 6th because my 6th house is my Aries house, but I have, that starts around 12
You've got 12 Aries, so this conjunction is at 2.
So this will be solidly in my 5th house, which is awesome.
It is for the creativity. I mean, bringing it forward.
Yeah, not to diss the 6th house, but
we don't want it in
so
there.
Much better. My God, yeah, we don't want it there.
And the reason we don't want it in the 6th house is because that is the house of work.
Yes,
it's work.
Yeah. Yeah, I would rather have it in the house of love, romance, recreation,
creation, fun thing, roller coasters.
God, yes. Bringing form and formlessness to creation.
Hey, pod friends. Jen from the Halfway to Dead podcast here. Quick break for some real talk. Midlife is freaking hard, am I right? Are you ready to ditch the BS, flip the script, and finish this life strong? Of course you are. Join me to listen to real conversations that don't shy away from the hard, messy stuff. And yeah, we get a little woo-woo along the way. Let's hit the road on this midlife spiritual journey together. Halfway to Dead, served up with humor and heart. Listen now wherever you get your podcasts.
Yes. So with this occurring for you, like say at 2 degrees Aries, it's not actually triggering any of your planets.
No, don't have
And
anything to
it's it's making a quincunx to the ascendant, but we'll just ignore that.
Yes.
Because these planets have been in your 5th house for at least 6 months. Definitely Saturn, and Neptune's been way longer.
Yeah.
Developing, I want to say, your creative outlet.
Yeah.
Which is...
Yeah, 6 months ago. I mean, that was Pinktober, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Definitely bringing form to creativity.
So in June, July, August, there might be some other creative project that you go for.
Maybe, yeah. I was actually drawing yesterday. I went to a park and I actually, instead of just tanning, because I do tan, sorry.
I love it.
Sorry, haters. I love tanning.
Well, it's 5th house too.
And I grabbed my drawing pad and I just, I drew some, with the one that you gave me actually. Yeah.
Max Media paper. It's the best.
Yeah.
It's the best. So this is it. So you are finding ways to express this 5th house creativity. We did have a podcast a couple of weeks ago on the 5th house. I'll put a link to that.
Yeah, definitely check that out.
Because we're particularly talking about Arwynne's 5th house, where these two are coming together. Now, they're not exact, but honestly, they're close enough.
Yeah.
We don't need to nitpick, but we can if you want us to. Yeah. But it's not the perfect exact, but it's close enough. It's 0 degrees, 12 minutes, which is pretty close.
Yeah.
Bringing these two concepts together in Aries. So Mars is still disposing the two, and it's activating these two planets for you. So we could assume that you're going to, as we get closer to this July 16th date, so it'll be like the 4th of July, Canada Day, the 1st of July, it's all going to come together where, what do we say?
It might be a burst of some kind of creative...
Absolutely.
Yeah, solid creation.
Some new art project you decide to work up towards, because this will be a great time to start something that's going to be available by the time we get to November for the Christmas season. Yeah. You might decide you're going to do some, dare I say it, tarot cards, oracle cards, something like that.
Maybe. Something. Could be.
She says, throwing it out there.
Who knows? I love how you plant the seeds. And then maybe I should.
Well, to formalize Saturn, the ethereal things that's going on in your head and bring it together.
Absolutely. It would be a shame not to take advantage of that kind of...
Well, isn't that the truth?
That is exactly why we do this. Exactly. So if you have anything at those degrees, take note. Because, take note anyway. I don't have anything at those degrees.
No, you don't.
Points to my house, 5th house. My mother, on the other hand, has Jupiter at 4 degrees Aries.
So it's conjoining her Jupiter.
Yeah.
And did we say what house that was in? What house is in that?
It's in her 11th house.
Okay.
So action and activities and community and bringing people together. And wow.
All her group work and building a community out there.
Yeah.
Building and confirming up and all the rest of it. Yeah. It's an interesting combination, because I think that if you're not paying attention, I'm not going to say this will pass you by, because it won't. Something's going to crop up for you, for everybody on these dates, and you'll see it in the news, whatever went down.
Yeah.
But if it affects your natal chart by a direct conjunction, you'll be aware of it. But if not, it's still going to happen for everybody in a house.
Yeah.
Now, if you're paying attention, you can lean into, as we say, this energy and formulate something artistic. Maybe you could take up a new dance routine. Maybe decide to, I don't know, do what? Roller art or something, or whatever it is. But it's the height of summer for us here in the Northern Hemisphere, so it's a great thing.
Looking back into the opposition that was happening when I wrote those articles in 2005, the opposition was in Aquarius and Leo, and that's kind of across my IC-MC axis. Exactly. And there I was writing this massive article that ended up becoming a presentation and ending up presenting that to the world, and in true MC fashion, bringing my creative imagery and words and whatever into an educational setting. And that is
putting it out there publicly.
Yeah.
In a formal setting.
Yeah. Exactly. So where is it in your chart? Where's this conjunction going to be?
This conjunction is going to be in my 9th house, where knowledge goes down.
Yeah.
So it's going to be, I'm assuming it's going to be a lot more, because I have taken many courses at the moment, but some of them are finished, but one is sort of ongoing, and it's becoming, I don't want to say it's becoming more difficult, but I'm having to really have to dig deep to keep going with it. It's not an easy ride.
Yeah.
Let's put it that way. And I've still got quite a way to go with it, and it's probably going to finish past this final conjunction later in 2026. But it's going to be a point where I will finally, Saturn will prevail. It has to.
Yeah.
Whereas Neptune just wants to run away or stay in bed and think, I don't want to do this anymore. It's just so much work and so much research and so much having to present your thoughts properly and this sort of thing. So I've got that going on there in the ninth house. But at the same time, which, as we recently spoke about too, it is the house of publishing. So even this podcast is going to, what do we say, not get a new lease on life, but become more organized, more formalized.
Yeah.
We're going to keep going.
Yeah, we are.
It's the conjunction, and certainly whatever crops up in the July month this year, we'll let you guys know.
What a great image of Saturn Neptune that is, corralling all the chaotic thoughts and creative energy and doing something concrete with it, you know?
Yeah, trying to bring it together, because I know up until now we've been doing this podcast, this particular one, for just over 2 years now, and we're almost at the end of the basic stuff, but to be honest, we're nowhere near the end. We've worked our way through many of the houses, and but not all of them yet, and we certainly haven't done all the planets yet as well, and all the aspects, and so many things, the signs, and there are so many things to get in place as a foundation to refer back to before we move on to far more advanced topics in astrology.
Absolutely.
Because it's important for us, me and Arwynne, to make sure that you, our listeners, know what we're talking about, so we can refer you back to some basic stuff before we talk about other concepts and other ideas that we have, of which there are many, regarding astrology.
For sure. And we know some of you are budding astrologers. We know some of you have a lifelong interest in astrology. But we know also that there are people coming to this who are listening because maybe they were referred by a friend and
they don't know anything.
Yeah. And then other people who are maybe as knowledgeable or more than we are, and just like, they're here for the conversation. Who knows?
Oh, exactly.
Thank you for listening if you are. But yeah, there's this huge spectrum of it.
Come for the astrology and stay for the conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because, we're not for everybody. We know that. We absolutely know that. We've got this strong Leo, Virgo, Scorpio vibe between the two of us.
Yeah.
But the ninth house, the publication of this podcast and other things, is going to, I would assume, I don't want to say be more cemented in some way, so maybe we'll make some, I don't know what we
I like the sound of that, whatever that means.
To get more organized and lay out our content calendar, perhaps for the next, till the end of the year at least.
Mission statement for conquering the world.
Yes, world domination coming through this podcast. Yeah. And the idea is to be worthwhile, to do the due diligence to make sure that we're correct, and
to bring value to the people who are devoting between
their time,
30 minutes and an hour and a bit every week.
Yeah. And wanting to get the message that we're putting is what we want to talk about.
Yeah,
not what others think we should.
It's true. I was thinking about that today, actually, as I was roller skating, and I was listening to a podcast. This, we can link to the show notes or not, because it's totally off topic, but it's this wonderful podcast called You Must Remember This, and it's a film podcast, and she goes deep into the history of film, and right now she's talking about the Manson murders and how they tied into the history of film, and she's got a wonderful narration style, and it's one of those podcasts that just kind of sucks you in and makes you really fascinated, because she's clearly done the research, and she is just a pillar in her field, right?
Yes.
And I feel like what is so interesting about that is not because she knows everything about film. She does a lot of research, but she's not in the industry. She doesn't talk about like this director and that director. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
But it's something that resonates deeply with me, and I think whoever's listening to this podcast listens to it because what we are talking about resonates with them personally, and it's not because they want to know what how does this transit that's happening today affect me. Yes. It's not like the 5-minute whatever. And it's not like all the deep history of astrology going back to like the Paleolithic, whatever. Yes. but yeah. And I think that, sometimes I say, oh my God, I'm sorry, I'm going off on a tangent again. But what I've really come come away with in the astrology podcasts and even books that I enjoy the most are the ones that have a personal story that resonates with me. And of course, every writer will include a bit of personality in some more than others, but the ones that resonate the most with me are the ones who say the same things that other people are saying, but just in a slightly different way that just perfectly kind of like connects with me. And if you are listening to this, then we are connecting with you, and that's awesome.
Yeah, I agree. It's we're offering the sort of astrology that we love.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so we've spoken about the upcoming Saturn conjunct Neptune transit that's unfolding during 2025, and the exact will be then in 2026. We've spoken about how that it's in the early degrees of Aries, and Arwynne's also spoken about some of the main themes that we can anticipate for this conjunction that will be global, and then, of course, slightly depending which house it is for you natally. We've just spoken about a couple of houses because it's a huge transit, and it's more likely to unfold globally, I think, than unless you've got something at these degrees rather than that. So,
Yeah, 100%.
If you found value in this episode, please do consider sharing it with anybody who would be interested, and make sure that you're getting our newsletter, and you can sign up at starzology.com/newsletter. Additionally, make sure that you're following Arwynne, and she has a newsletter at
mspink.net. That's mspink.net, and I am blogging every Saturday, and I'm talking about art and books and movies and history and nostalgia and my personal life, etc. So
it's great. It's great. It's a lot of fun. Arwynne's a brilliant writer as well.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah. So, well, Arwynne, thank you so much for joining me this week. It's been great having you.
It has been great to be here. Thanks so much, and we'll see you next time.
We'll see you next time.